Thank you so much for being a part of Good Morning Kenya, and this is the only way to start your morning. My name is Samuel Njoroge, and in case you've just joined us, welcome to the program, and you can talk to us through our social media platforms and also engage us on the content that we're bringing your way this Tuesday. Now, joining us live from Nairobi is the CEO of NACADA, that is Victor Okioma. We'll be discussing issues to do with alcohol and drugs consumption in the wake of COVID-19. Victor, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for welcoming us to this platform.
Right, you're welcome. Now we can begin maybe by you sharing with us some of the patterns that have emerged when it comes to alcohol consumption in the wake of COVID-19.
Once again, thank you for this show. I think COVID-19 has, for us in the authority, come with a very interesting experience. You know, we're now talking about the normal, and the new normal is that bars are closed, and many of us who will be visiting these places have got to look for alternatives. The new normal is also that we are home with our children. Many of them are on online studies of one kind or the other. And therefore, the changes that we have observed in this new normal is that despite the closure of bars and restaurants and the general ban on sale of alcohol in these places, people still have to find their way to access their drink. And therefore, we have seen a new normal where drinking in homes has become a matter of concern for us in the authority. And you know, you are drinking at home as the children are learning, and you can see that kind of image. We have seen a new normal where people have started drinking from the parking places. We have seen people in the streets, people in the cars, wherever they are parked, drinking. This is something we have also observed as a way of going around the restrictions imposed on sale of alcohol. And another new normal that we have observed is that there is an upsurge in the online sale of alcohol to homes, to places where the hideouts where people are drinking. So we have observed that despite the restrictions, people are still able to access, and they have become very innovative in trying to access their alcohol.
Yeah.
That is an issue that we are actually getting concerned. Even the abuse of what we call the off-bar license, what you would call wines and spirits. Wines and spirits are meant to dispense alcohol from around 5 to about 8, but we have seen some of them open from as early as 8 and close as late as, and some of them is selling, and you know, they are dispensing from on site, which is not allowed. It has become a new practice that we observe on a daily basis, and it's an issue of great concern to us.
All right, and you talk about
those are some of the kind of innovative ways of going against the directives that we should not sell alcohol in bars and in restaurants, and therefore these are mechanisms that have been designed by those who drink to make sure they continue to access their drink.
All right, Victor, I'm very sure you've also observed the sort of relationship that has been between regulators, bars, and the government when it comes to the issue of alcohol, sale of alcohol in the country. How do you propose, or what role will NACADA play to try and sanitize the chain as it is right now?
Let me say that NACADA's mandate is basically to generally regulate the alcohol sector, and we do this with a number of players. some of whom have their own specific mandates. Like, for example, when you talk about our partnership with KEBS, when we are doing our enforcement operations, their work is basically to assist us to identify what is certified alcohol and what is not. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that in the sector, in the industry, we have counterfeit alcohol, we have some alcohol that is not certified, and we cannot really say where it's coming from. And these are the challenges. We also work with the public health and the county government in doing our enforcement operations. And they have a specific role they play in this, and we do this as a multi-agency. We team up with quite a number of other agencies to be able to ensure that there is compliance to various laws that regulate the alcohol sector. Mm-hmm. What I can say is that from our monitoring and surveillance, there are quite a number of challenges in that sector. And I think the way to go is to continue as a multi-agency to make sure that we bring sanity in that sector. Because as it is now, we have a lot of challenges.
Right. And will you be playing any role to try and bring sanity into the sector and avert the challenges therein?
Yes, of course, we are actually the lead agency in terms of regulating the alcohol industry. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these enforcement activities I'm talking about, we actually are the people who constitute these teams. And our mandate, we are actually required to coordinate with other lead agencies to ensure some of the enforcement activities that we carry out, like ensuring that there is alcohol in the industry and the market is safe. That is actually our key mandate under the Alcoholic Drinks Control Act. Mm-hmm. We are required to ensure that the alcohol in the market is safe, and we do this by a multi-agency team that looks at the public health aspects of premises which are being used. We do this by, for example, we are supposed to ensure that all the premises that are selling alcohol are licensed by their respective counties. And when we do the multi-agency, we also involve all counties to confirm that these premises are actually licensed. Mm-hmm. So it is really a multi-agency approach that we lead, because that is ours is to coordinate response to ensure that we protect Kenyans from unsafe alcohol in the market. So we do that very often, and we are the lead agency in that team.
In the course of your constant study of some of these patterns, what would you say? What would you identify as the main causes of drug and alcohol abuse in the country?
Well, of course, there are many causes of alcohol alcohol abuse, and let me start by saying that abuse of alcohol basically means that you're using it for other reasons. That you become dependent on alcohol, and you cannot function normally until you have taken alcohol. That is when we have issues of dependence. And abuse, therefore, comes from the fact that as a human being, you are not able to function normally. You cannot sleep. You cannot concentrate on your work unless you have taken alcohol. That is the time we now talk about abuse. Now, there are many explanations, and when you talk to people in those who indulge in this, they will tell you it's because we are unemployed. We don't have anything to do. Others will tell you, I drink so that I can fit in my group because my peers drink. Yeah, there are also issues of poor parenting, where we expose our young children to alcohol at an early age. You go to your shelf and there's alcohol there in the fridge. There is wine, and and you in the evening when you are taking, you are also inducting your children into taking it. So that's one of the many concerns that we have raised actually under this period when parents are staying with their children at home. And from the surveys that we have carried out as an authority, we can tell you that a lot of the young people who are indulging in alcohol have actually learned this from their parents as they drink it in the house. And therefore we are actually a risk factor because the young people learn how to drink from their parents. There is also, I think, we do not monitor as parents what our children, young people are doing, and therefore they go out there and they are through their company they are able to start taking some drugs. And for us, because as innocent parents, we do not get to know that these children are getting introduced into some drugs, and you come to realize when it's too late. So close monitoring a child grows by a parent will be able to signal that something is not right. Yeah. And that is why we encourage that parents really need to be very close in terms of monitoring how their young children are behaving. Yeah. And when they realize strange behavior, they should be able to send a signal and look for help before it's too late. So there are many reasons why people drink. Others drink because it's leisure.
Yeah, but let's keep up with that bit of parents having to monitor their children, because some years back, John Mututho had raised concern over the increasing number of teenagers and adolescents who were taking alcohol then. Has this pattern changed years down the line?
Well, I think I wouldn't say it has changed. In fact, from the surveys we have done, one on the drug, abuse preferences in secondary schools, I think we did in 2016. And in 2018, we have done a survey on preference of drug abuse in primary schools. And our statistics shows that we have a growing concern. And actually more and more young people in our schools are actually involved in drinking. And this is actually a great concern for us, because you see, when you find these growing trends in our institutions of learning, then you realize that we are, as a country, going the wrong direction. The management of our institutions, I think perhaps they have not put in place a mechanism to be able to detect early when there are this kind of abuses on drugs in our institutions. And as an authority, this is an area we have been focusing on. We have actually a lot of practical, very aggressive engagement with the administration of our institutions. And we are currently working with the Ministry of Education to come up with a curriculum that will address some of these concerns that we have observed in our institutions. So I wouldn't say that the problem has been addressed. I am saying we are trying to address the problem, but it is a challenge that we all must focus on.
All right, let's talk about COVID-19 and the fact that health officials have been saying that an increase in alcohol consumption within your body is going to increase your chances of contracting COVID-19. How have you been able to monitor this particular measure of evidence?
Well, I think for us, what we I think are more concerned with is the fact that COVID-19 and from the guidelines issued by government is requires that you keep social distance, you wear a mask, you wash your hands. And the question I want to ask is, how do you do that when you are drunk? Mm-hmm. You cannot keep social distance when you have been drinking the whole evening. You may have started with the social distance, but as you go along, you will find that the social doesn't exist. And we have got cases when we are doing our surveillance. Mm-hmm. We have found people locked behind the bars, and they are crowded, and there's no social distance. So I can tell you that keeping social distance and indulging in drinking don't go together.
Yeah. And what of the stakeholder engagement when it comes to the whole issue of managing drugs and substance abuse in the country? How has that fared in terms of making your job easier at NACADA?
Well, our campaign, let me say this, our campaign is basically built around two pillars. Mm-hmm. One is on demand reduction. We target demand reduction through our campaign activities. Yeah. under which we engage various stakeholders, the youth, the borders, the schools, parents within the various catchments where we find them, like in churches where we have the women guild, where we have the men groups within the church. So we do the campaign through these partnerships with the hope that we create the awareness about the dangers of drug abuse, and by that we hope that when the message sinks, people are able to kind of keep off the abuse. We engage the students, and we have actually the school-based program which we run as an authority, and through this program we engage the schools and talk to the students. We also have a life skill which targets the young people in schools, which actually is meant to stop their initiation into drugs by creating the awareness early enough to be able to stop from getting initiated into drug abuse. So we do the campaign under the demand reduction pillar to be able to create the awareness that will help people realize that there are dangers in abusing drugs, and that there is a way you can manage it. We also do promote rehabilitation for those who are affected.
Yeah.
And our involvement in the area of treatment is basically by inspecting and accrediting the facilities that do offer these services. But the majority of them are actually privately owned. And that is one area that we are facing the challenges. And in fact, our engagement currently is to appeal to county governments who are actually under the new constitution. That function has been devolved to them to try and build facilities that are publicly owned, which will be more accessible. The government-owned facilities are few, and therefore our call is that we need to actually do much more. And in showing the way, we are actually currently, through a presidential directive, we are doing a rehab in Miritini in Mombasa. We hope that our dream there is to bring up a center for excellence in that place. We are currently starting small, but we are hoping that we'll be able to mobilize resources to put up a center for excellence in the management of addiction in the country. And our appeal is basically to counties. This is an area that we need to invest in so that we are able to address those who are already affected. As we do the campaign for those who have not been affected to stop getting involved to the extent that they will be in a problem, we also must respond to those who are actually in a problem, as we are talking about. If you go across the country, Mombasa, Nairobi here, you see a number of cases of young people who have been affected with drugs, who are in the dens, who are in the streets. And these are Kenyans that we must be able to look for a way of assisting them.
Is the legislative framework sufficient to facilitate what you've just said?
The legal framework, the legal framework is, in my own view, sufficient because the counties, under their own legal frameworks, which they have actually customized from the alcoholic drinks control, creates room for those kind of demand reduction programs. And indeed, this is really a facility that you really don't need a law to be able to put up a facility to assist your people. What do you expect is that there is a licensing regime which is in place. You can go through the licensing regime and you are licensed to start up your own facility. So I think there is no shortage of legal framework that supports treatment or establishment of rehabilitation facilities. There is no big challenge on that area.
Oh, nice. So when you look at what a majority of counties are doing, they're trying to set up rehabilitation centers to help those that are currently affected by drug and substance abuse. However, the question begs, how sustainable can some of these initiatives be, and what needs to happen so that the result of any rehabilitation program is actually sustainable?
What needs to happen is, first and foremost, let me put it this way, that we have not done much in that area of putting up rehabs to support those of us who are affected. And the first stop is that let us invest in these facilities. And we have actually engaged proactively with a number of counties in this, and I can tell you currently around 10 counties we have had partnership with have already started putting in place. In fact, others have already finalized they have done their rehabs with our we appeal to the rest of the counties to respond to this need, because in our midst, in our counties, we have a number of young people who are affected and who need this sort of help. So for us, we will continue to inspect those that are available to ensure that the services that are offered in those facilities are able to respond to the needs of those who are affected. What we have currently is some rehabs which actually do not have the capacity to deliver on an effective rehabilitation service. That we have been going around, and we are ensuring that all those facilities that do not have the right skills, the right facilities, the right equipment to address this do not operate until they are put in place all this equipment and these facilities.
Right.
You are talking about sustainability. Sustainability is an issue that really depends on whether you have put aside resources that will ensure that you have the right staff. And for government, the issue of sustainability is not an issue. You are able to recruit staff because this is a facility. A rehabilitation is actually a sort of treatment. And if you have the right staff and you have the right equipment, you should be able to have no problem, because the people will always be there. And sustainability is that the counties must set aside a budget to ensure these facilities are running. If they are running, it's just like a clinic. If you have put the staff and you are able to set aside funds to support the operations of that clinic, it is the same way you will manage the rehabs. And they are better managed by counties who are able to recruit staff and pay them. And of course, they have very many people who need this service. So the issue of sustainability should not be a challenge at all.
Okay, Victor, the last map out in terms of the critical areas that need attention when it comes to alcohol and drugs, and substance abuse, we saw regions like the coast, we saw regions like central Kenya, and a lot needed to be done at that point to save these regions from a dire situation. Has this improved since then?
Alcohol and drug abuse is a big challenge in the country. In fact, you have only mentioned three, and I can tell you that there are more regions that have a serious problem of alcohol and drug abuse. Going forward, what needs to be done is we continue the campaign, and more importantly, this campaign must be spearheaded by the county governments. That is the best way to go. As NACADA, we are willing to work with all the counties to ensure that this campaign is sustained. And indeed, I must say that in central Kenya, we have had very, very aggressive campaigns there. And that, of course, like I have talked about the 10 counties, we have Nyeri. They have done a very big facility there. And I was in Moranga the other day. They are all equally concerned, and I think they are in the process. The county government is in the process of establishing a very big rehab center there, which was formerly, I think, used as area, but they pull out, but they are again going back into it. There are quite a number of counties in Central that realize that they have a problem, and I have seen leaders expressing their concern about the situation. And really, the way to go is this matter must be spearheaded by the county and supported by the leadership in those counties, so that the issue of alcohol and drug abuse becomes a campaign that brings on board everybody that is concerned. Because unless we go that way, this country has a serious problem of drug and substance abuse that really actually threatens to undermine whatever development we have made since independence. And therefore, it is a matter that should be taken up by the counties and the leadership of those counties, and ensure that everybody is brought on board so that they are able to speak out about this problem and they are able to take action against the drug and substance abuse, and in fact identify those who are perpetrating this problem and work with the security enforcement agencies in those regions to ensure that they cut the supply of these drugs and illicit alcohol within those communities. That is the only way we are going to make any progress in the campaign against alcohol and drug abuse in the country.
Okay, and let me, for example, now draw your attention to some of your recent partnerships. For example, down at the coast, you recently partnered with the Kenya Ports Authority to try and counter the effects of drug and substance abuse in that region. Just kindly talk to us a little bit about the nature of partnership that you're having with the Kenya Ports Authority in this regard.
Well, I think the Kenya Ports Authority has been our partner for quite, I think, over 5 years. And we went in there on an invitation by KPA to try and put in place a workplace program that will sensitize the staff and try to, develop a policy framework on how to deal with the drug within the organization. This was a need that was, brought out by the KPA, and they sought our assistance. We went in there. We have done. We did a baseline survey on the drug situation, and the findings were that that organization actually had a serious problem. In excess of 30-40% of staff were actually dealing with addiction issues. That's so we started the program, the workplace program with KPA, and we have been working together progressively trying to find out the situation currently has actually improved since we went in to start this program. I was with the MD the other day when he covered this in the meeting. Mm-hmm. And really what we went there to do is to appreciate the partnership. And as a token of appreciation, they gave us a check of 1 million to support the ongoing rehabilitation work in Miritini, which I have already mentioned. And therefore, this partnership is something that has been going on, basically to support the organization to identify the challenges of ADA in the organization and put in place programs to address them. And as a result, that appreciation of one check, in fact, they have committed that going forward, they are going to assist the organization more because, one, they are in the neighborhood, and therefore, as a corporate social responsibility, they have committed to support that facility. And secondly, for us, the port is very strategic because a lot of the drug trafficking goes through the port, and therefore, we are sensitizing the staff and working together to put in place mechanisms to ensure that we are monitoring whatever comes in through the port, and we are able to detect. So that is basically the partnership we have had with KPA, and we also have a partnership with other organizations where we are working with them to address the drug workplace-related drug issues. I can mention, for example, we have had the Energy and Petroleum Regulation Authority. We have been working with them. Okay. We have worked with a number of counties on this program.
Yes,
we have worked with a number of. In fact, this financial year, we are targeting to work with, I think, over 100 and plus state corporations in undertaking a workplace program.
Victor, I wouldn't like us to wind up this interview without getting your comment on this matter, because now licensing on the importation and exportation of alcoholic drinks will now become a function of NACADA. Previously, it was being done by the county governments. Now it's strictly under your docket. Kindly talk to us about this move and how it's going to foster delivery of your mandate moving forward as NACADA.
Well, by the way, let me mention that licensing of import and export is international trade. It is not meant to be a function of any county government. That should be the position. And the problem actually that we are talking about started by the failure for the transition authority, which was mandated to devolve the functions that were meant to be devolved to counties. Yes. They failed to unbundle that function of licensing. That has been causing that confusion, and it's through the engagement with the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee that we were able to identify a gap in terms of licensing of imports, because which county government will be responsible for an activity that is international trade in nature? There is no function, there is no county that has been given any mandate on international trade. And therefore, import and export is basically an international trade. And because of alcohol being a controlled, I would call it a drug, we as NACADA have the mandate to regulate alcohol in the country. That is basically what happened. So we have basically taken over the import and the export because it's an international trade, doesn't fall within any county government. So if there was anything that was being done by whichever county to license import or export of alcohol, I think that was a kind of a gap that we have really addressed currently, and I don't think there's an issue now.
Do you still have concern over the increase when it comes to online liquor sales? You had the same in May this year. What's the situation now?
The situation is even worse now. In fact, the campaign we have been having, you remember through this partnership with KBC, we have been running the positive parenting.
Yeah.
And one of the things why we started that program is because we wanted an opportunity to warn parents that alcohol in the house is a serious threat to, it's a serious exposure to young people, and with the potential to initiate them into early, what we call underage drinking. And the online sale has only become very active because people are at home and the bars are closed. So that's why they are actually using online to access alcohol in the house. When it's delivered there, some parents, maybe they have a way to hide it from the children. Others may be just taking it together with the children. I do not know. But what we are saying as an authority, that is an unwarranted exposure of young people with a potential for early initiation into drinking. It is a dangerous habit, and we as an authority have been trying to discourage it.
Okay.
The other thing that is of concern to us as online is the fact that even young people can be able to access alcohol through online sales. That has been proved. In fact, what happens with online is you take a phone and call the distributor of alcohol, and you just get a motorbike to deliver to your wherever hideout where you are.
Yes. And
once it arrives there, you pay. That man who is delivering, whether a child or an adult, he just has is just doing delivery.
All right.
So what we are saying is that through this online sale, we have evidence that the young people are actually accessing alcohol through online sales, and we have been, campaigning against that practice.
Okay.
In fact, we are now looking at the best way to control this. Some of these online sources are not even known where they are.
All right, Victor Okioma.
If they were registered somewhere and we know that this is the supplier, it becomes very easy even for KEPS or the other agencies to check and confirm that they comply to certain basic requirements.
Okay.
That is the concern we have.
All right, Victor Okioma there, the CEO, NACADA. Thank you so much for your time and contribution. Have a nice day moving forward.